time. As to the ones that I'm not happy.
That is what they meant, actually.
Hey, how's it going?
I know. They told me they changed around what to say. Yeah. Remember, that was the point. They were saying that there are going to be some weeks you do keep that. There are going to be some weeks you guys do. There are going to be some weeks that you guys go look twice.
All right.
You guys will go look. And maybe said, oh, well, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
He literally said that. Then he just came back and said, no, oh, yeah, no.
in a way, I would love for it to be sometimes that, like, I know as much as I can now, and I know that I want to get better next semester. You can't make what happened on right now, but the same. That's what I thought.
It would have been a lot easier to study this, even just doing every year. We had no choice. But just remember,
Also,
I said, screw it. And I told her, get your passes.
That's true.
I know it's hard to break that habit. Get close to average for the
You look at the opposite way. I've been teaching since 7 a.m.
But it doesn't matter. As long as you have for the semester.
Would you break though? It's a winter
Yeah,
break.
once again, like,
It's a winter break.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's gonna happen. You're gonna have to
Especially not over the
not kill yourself for that.
Always that.
You got 4 more weeks till the next semester. 4 more work weeks. You pass.
All right, everybody, we're going to get started now. It's 5:30. We're going to call the meeting to order. And the agenda actually has the wrong date on there. Today is Monday, December 4th. We're going to call this meeting to order. This is our last Senate meeting for the semester. So you guys made it through a whole semester. Great job. There you go. We have an amazing speaker here today, Chief of Police Randy Rebola, who is the Chief of Police for both CU Anschutz and the CU Denver Police Department. He's actually based here at Anschutz. We're honored to have him come speak to you guys about safety on campus, some initiatives that were started by Police Chief Doug Abraham, and then some continued new efforts and outreach that the police department wants to do with students. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and let's give him a round of applause and thank him for coming.
Okay, what I would have preferred that he said was that you couldn't get your amazing speaker, so I'm here. I'd like to have the expectations down here somewhere so that maybe I can at least meet them, and if I exceed them, then that appears that you got more than you bargained for. Thanks for making time for me. I thought that this might be a good opportunity as we wind down 2017, talk a little bit about what we're doing on campus related to safety, kind of where we see it going, and then just I welcome any questions and or any feedback from you all, whether it be now or later. We're always looking for an opportunity to either continue, expand, or launch programs that are relevant to our community. And since the reason for this institution is education and research, if we're not doing things that make life less complicated for you, then we're not necessarily adding the value that that my boss would like to see us add. Unfortunately, the topic is probably not a new one when we start talking about security, and with everything that's gone on over the last 2 or 3 months, active shooters, active harmers continue to be a topic of interest. And this fall, because of some things that happened up in Fort Collins, with that affected some students up there, though that wasn't necessarily a random active shooter. If you're familiar with the incident, probably back in October, it was probably more related to a domestic violence incident, but resulted in 3 people being killed and 1 student being injured. Students from both CU and CSU that were involved in that. We got some questions about, well, what's going on the different campuses to increase safety. Let me turn this off since I have a shiny object and my topics change. So thought it might be good to share with you some of the things that I shared back at that time with the chancellors and with a couple of faculty that had asked, but then also kind of talk about what our general strategy is Because the one thing that we're finding is that whatever we come up with today to meet yesterday's challenge or yesterday's assault, something different is going to happen tomorrow. So whatever we do, we're trying to push out concepts or projects that are flexible and adaptable, and that in any given situation, in any given community, it still applies. And I kind of stole something from up in Boulder when they were working on, the city of Boulder was working on pedestrian safety. They took a multi-pronged approach, and it included things like engineering or infrastructure, education. They also threw in enforcement when it came to pedestrian safety, then evaluation. And it's not too dissimilar to what we've been doing here on this campus. In fact, I've been doing before I got here when it comes to what can we do to enhance the safety. We start with infrastructure. We take a look at classroom facilities. What can we do to existing systems to enhance the physical security? Then what do we share as far as information? How do we educate people to be prepared to take action when they find themselves in a threatening situation, and then evaluate that and determine if what we've been doing is still meeting those needs. And unfortunately, just about all of the CU campuses in Colorado have expressed one type of critical incident or another that led to a loss of life. So a couple of things that I shared at that time, and I wanted to share with you guys that are ongoing, and because I am getting older, and the font on my phone is not big enough for me to see it without making the letters so big that it looks like an eye chart. A couple of things that continue. So classroom security project, and you can see the blue strobes up on the wall. That is something that actually the Chancellor funded on this campus. Would have been probably last winter. I got here in April. It had been funded in probably February or March, a $285,000 project to launch a unique lockdown project on this campus, and unique to at least higher education. I have seen some similar systems in newer elementary schools, but the concept is that there will be two buttons in this room, and in fact, one of them is taped up over there in blue tape, and there will be one here on this podium, and it's not here yet, that if something were to happen and someone out in the hall were, say, trying to get in here, or you knew there was a threat, if someone hits that button, this building goes into lockdown. Now, the funding for the project doesn't cover every single square foot of the building. So I can't tell you right now, I don't have the inventory of which rooms are going to be in the first phase, but it would lock down this room, every room on this floor, and then any rooms that are associated, and it's predominantly classrooms, from here going down would go into lockdown. The strobes would be activated in those rooms so that if, say, next door it happened and that light started flashing, what that tells you is that there is some sort of threat in the building. You won't have any more specificity than that, but it will lock this room. So in the concept of run, hide, fight, hopefully you've heard that. It's in a lot of the promotional material that we put out, or educational materials that have been used on campuses for really 5 or 6 years now. That's when you evaluate your options. If you can stay in this location, you stay in this location. You'll notice one of the things that's been a little inconvenient for, at least I know for faculty, is the opaque on the glass. The concept there was that if someone were going to shoot in through the window, with the opaqueness on the glass, they can't see in, so they can't choose a target. I know, especially for faculty, it's been somewhat inconvenient because in some locations, people are now coming into rooms when there's still a class going on. We're aware of that, and we're working with educational support services to try to come up with probably a low-tech type solution, because we don't want these sorts of things to become obnoxious. But if anyone's flown in the last 10 years, you know that security is not convenient. But what we're trying to do is not make it more inconvenient for you. So that project continues to roll forward. I have not seen the latest completion date. The majority of the hardware is in each of the classrooms, and the number that we were estimating was about 55 classrooms, and then there were a few additional conference rooms that were identified if we still had funding that we would do those as well. The other important piece, when that button gets hit, it sends an alarm to the dispatch center. So it's it's like a panic alarm. The one problem with panic alarms is all we know is that there's an emergency here. So we will then dispatch officers. Depending on the nature, you might see Aurora officers coming in. You might even see officers from the Veterans Administration Police Department come in as well. Because in some sort of active harm situation, we deploy however many resources we can get to the scene so that we can locate it, identify it, and take action. So in addition to that, alerting people in the building, dispatch gets a priority alarm, and then they will dispatch officers immediately. Is anyone in here seeing any of the run, hide, Run, hide, fight videos. Okay, a smattering of you. The one that is available on our website is just a maybe 6.5 minute video that the city of Houston put together, and it's really well done. In addition to that, on Skillsoft, each of you, anyone who's affiliated with the university, and I think that's any of the University of Colorado campuses, you can get access to the Run, Hide, Fight video. If you're interested, it's a good video. My daughter-in-law got her teaching degree down at UC Colorado Springs, and unfortunately she graduated right before that video became available. And after seeing elementary school shootings, I tried to share it with her, because even though it's 20-some minutes, so it's a lot longer, it's very relevant for an educational setting. And in an educational session in higher ed, where we have adult students, it gives you an idea of what's going to happen as police officers respond. Is that their primary responsibility is going to be to find the threat, neutralize it, whatever that means, and then tend to anybody who needs aid. And it also lets you know that when someone comes running in here, nobody knows who the good guys are and the bad guys are. So it gives you some insight as to what you would do as, say, a person who's caught up in the middle of that, whether you were here, you were at a mall, you're at a theater, I mean, the list goes on and on. What you can do to make it easier for the first responders to identify you as a friendly and keep moving towards whatever the target would be. So there's a lot of moving parts there, but that project allows us to do something with our current infrastructure. And it allows us to do that here because we have one standard platform for all of our alarms here on campus. The reason I mentioned that to you is that we have gotten this question about, can it be done downtown? There's a lot of legacy systems there and some older system combined with newer systems that they don't talk to one another. So we don't have that ability to do that downtown right now, and we don't have the same resources down there. So that will continue to move out. Once it's ready to roll, we will push out an educational video. We're working with CU Productions to push out probably I can't imagine it's even 10 minutes, maybe a 5 to 6 minute video that explains how the thing works. And that'll be out there, and we'll publicize that, push it out to you guys so that your communications folks can push that out as well, so that people understand what it is, what it's supposed to do, and what some of the limitations are. The couple of other things, in fact, when I was here last spring, Chief Abraham mentioned that we were working on an agreement with Critical Arc, which is an application. The other application is called Safe Zone, which allows people to download this app to your smartphone. And when you're on this campus, if you run into an incident and you activate it, it sends an emergency message that someone needs help, and it gives us your location, generally an X and a Y coordinate. We are putting in additional transponders, I'm sure that's not the right term, but little devices that help triangulate that cellular signal in a couple of locations. The library is going to do it, and in Building 500, there's a floor there, the outpatient psych clinic, because of some experiences they've had, they wanted to invest in it. It's not real expensive, but it's not easy to deploy. So that is also being rolled out, and in fact, have a meeting tomorrow to find out where we are as far as that process.
Is it system where, like, if I hit it, it then tells you where I was? Because I'm probably going to leave.
Now, I've seen it one time. It should move with you. Now I say that, but I have not seen it in the drill. We did have a chance to drill it back in September, and I happened to be away at a class. But it should show us where you are at that time and where you go until it's deactivated. But I've not played with it enough to know how do you then deactivate it. So I'm still learning it myself, and it is in limited locations. For example, the library, one of the reasons to put in the library, it's a 24/7 building, and it's not always staffed. Now, after hours, when that closes down, our officers, police and our security officers, usually spend more time in there. But because those are locations where we'd want to be able to find you more specifically, that was one of the reasons to put it in there. We ran into a couple of minor glitches because of some requirements that we meet, some security testing for penetration so that someone can't get in, get a user's information, and compromise it. That's being worked through. So probably early in this spring semester, that will be rolled out. It is actually operational now if you happen to have it. We found that out when one got accidentally activated, but it was great because it gave me an opportunity to go down and see what the screens look like, and also to see that in the buildings where we went for heavy deployment or real saturation, it gives real good specificity. If we get it into this building, which we'd like to do that as part of this project, what we will at least get is a general location on the footprint and then the floor that you're on. But those items are not deployed yet. So that probably, once we get this up and running, which that's been the priority, we'll move that out as well. So an additional app that, my only hesitation is we don't have the resources to deploy it to the depth that we'd like to campus-wide, but it will give us some additional insight in some of the buildings where we have some unique needs or we have some 24/7 operation. Yes, ma'am.
So the buttons that have been installed, when they get sent to dispatch, does that tell you which specific room it came from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, in fact, if you're not on top of these doors, there's detailed, in addition to the room number, if there's actually, these would be just a room number. If you get inside a room, it's got like a telephone room, there's a whole nother number. So it gives good specificity. It also allows them to then begin watching the cameras. So we have a lot of cameras on this campus, primarily in the common areas. So then out in the hall, they can pull up the cameras. It allows the dispatchers that if the officers are going to be 2 to 3 minutes away, which in general, our response time is inside of 4 minutes, just about anywhere on campus, they can begin to get some visual on it. So yeah, it tells them which room, and I'm not sure if it's going to tell them that it's a podium alert or a wall alert. Probably doesn't necessarily make a difference, but it'll give us some level of detail. Yes, ma'am.
Are these operational now?
Not yet.
Do you have an estimate when they will be?
They want it to be done by the end of the year, and they're not going to make it. I asked for an update last week. Last estimate was in January, probably looking at 1st of February. What we need to do is we want to wait till we get to at least beyond finals, because we need to test those lockdowns. And we thought it would probably be better not to do it while everyone's in the building and create some anxiety. So once we get a chance to see if the hardware and the software is communicating correctly, then we go live.
And one other question, will the faculty be informed of their use and their intent?
Yes. And in fact, some have been polled as part of a kind of a focus group on some of the communication that we're using, but I can't even tell you if it is even 10%. But we found a couple of groups that had some time to give us some feedback on the images, because we're trying to go icon heavy and text light. So a few have been consulted, but then we've got to be real proactive on the education, and probably they're going to get tired of me showing up at different staff meetings or seeking out different deans and whatnot to make sure they're aware of what it does. And actually, I'm a little embarrassed that we haven't been better at educating people on what's coming. Now, on the other hand, I know that our director of electronic security has wanted me to hold back because of how slow it was to get the project launched. So they didn't want people beating their doors down. But we're going to have to push a real heavy information campaign to make people aware of how this thing works. You have a follow-up? Over here.
So on that same note, once they're up and running, and let's say we push the button, the room goes on lockdown, can you leave the room?
Yes. Correct. Good question. Doesn't prevent any exit. And in fact, and that's that building wide. All it does is it will not allow anyone to go into an enclosed space. It's likely that probably the intermission cafe and the bookstore is going to participate as well, but because they're concessionaires or vendors, they need to figure out how they're going to fund it. But yeah, there's no limitation to exit. The other piece of the project, and I think that's probably the kit there on the wall, that's a trauma first aid kit. We call them bleeding control kits. So we will have in there things for more traumatic injuries, tourniquets, blood clot, probably some plastic in case someone were to get a sucking chest wound, something like that. For real trauma type incidents, that kit will be equipped as well. And if we wired everything the way we do in most locations, just opening that sends an alarm to dispatch. Similarly, if you've seen the AED cabinets around campus, if all the batteries are kept up to date on those, if you open one, it should send an alarm to dispatch, and the alarm instructions tell them send an ambulance. So usually what we do is until we get, even without confirmation, we'll send an officer and EMS, assuming that has been activated. So it's pretty robust. Yes, ma'am. Yes, and we're going to probably need help. So one of the reasons to push that video out is to make that available, but people have got to go to it. Similarly, one of the other things I was going to mention that we do is that we do the active harmer training sessions. Sometimes we'll do a brown bag. Sometimes we do a specific group. I think that we did 3 this fall on this campus. And depending on what's going on in the world and how busy students and or faculty staff are, we'll get great attendance or we don't get a lot of attendance. So we're trying to figure out how do we make those things more readily available. In fact, you can go to our website and you can find the same information as well. But whatever medium necessary to get that information out there so that people understand what the tools are supposed to do to enhance their safety. And again, we're not going to present it. This isn't going to make the campus completely protected, but it's a resource that we can use in the event that something happens. You guys, some of you will get tired of hearing about it, but that's okay.
I wonder if it's possible to do, like when we did in grade school, maybe a drill, just do a mock one, like once a day for a week.
If we could do that kind of drill, I mean, that would be awesome. In fact, I've been to some of the, I was at the Boulder campus for a while. We would go out with City of Boulder and we would do lockdown drills with them in the elementary schools. You just didn't know who was going to respond. It takes a little bit of effort to organize it. And, or even if we found, if there are some faculty members that were willing to help us test it out, we could at least do some lessons learned from that. In the fall, we do a drill at the outpatient psych clinic where they basically shut down that floor for a day. We don't bring in professional actors. We bring in officers that wish they'd been actors. So performances are like B grade. Some of them are pretty good. So we get a full day of that. And there is always a lot that we gain from that. Even though it's role play, it's a great opportunity to see how, for example, Safe Zone didn't quite work like we thought it would. One of the things that happened was because of the level of what would you say, participation they have, some of them are administrators on it. And what they didn't realize is if someone else launches it, their phone starts to go off like a Claxton alarm, like an air raid type signal. So we learned some things in trying that. So, I mean, or if you guys are willing to come in and be our beta group or a focus group, we can test it, even though it wouldn't be exactly like, say, your classroom. I want to figure out what the limitations are, because I do not want to sell this as the panacea, because there's still so many things that we just can't anticipate. We may find too, depending on what's going on in the world, that creates a little more sense of urgency or anxiety, and that can help facilitate an opportunity for people to free up an hour or 15, 20 minutes. The thing though with it is that, as I'm thinking this through, we hit that button, this whole building, the alarms will go off. The lockdown, like I said, goes from the top down, because it's assuming that if someone were running, they're not going to run up, they're going to run down. So it's a shooter or a harmer. So there would be a little bit of coordination, but I'm open to anything creative that will also give us some muscle memory and some lessons learned so that we can continually refine the process. Other questions on that? And it is, I don't think it's been done anywhere else. Our director of electronic security was a former FBI agent, and he is a techie. Loves to do this stuff. And in fact, he didn't really do it in the FBI. He just took it upon himself to teach him this stuff. And occasionally other universities are asking to borrow him. The problem is that he will sometimes design a Cadillac, and we have a budget for a Chevy. So figuring out how to do this and make it effective within our fiscal limitations is a challenge. I better put my glasses back on because I'm going to end up going 40 minutes. I told him I wouldn't even talk 10, right? And we talked about the day-long exercise. The other thing, too, we'll do a drill here in December when I realize you guys won't be on break per se, but there won't be classes. And in December, we'll bring Aurora in, and we will do some active shooter drills in the building. Just because, and I mentioned to you before, we don't plan when something like this happens. The one time I was involved in one, it was officers from 3 or 4 agencies that responded, and our officers on campus had a general idea about the footprint of the building. But I mean, look at our buildings. I mean, on this campus, I'm not sure if we have anything under 100,000 square feet. So they're complex buildings. And getting Aurora's officers and the VA familiar with our buildings is one of my priorities, because we can really leverage that resource. The other thing, and I don't think we've done it in the past, we were just talking this morning in the planning, is to get Aurora Fire in here and their EMS. Unfortunately, they have some good experience with mass casualty incidents. And the thing that becomes very complicated is, sure, once you get the scene safe, great, but because of the panic that it creates, getting additional responders in is a whole nother ball of wax. So we continue to look at how we can leverage our relationships with other agencies to get them in here, get them familiar with our campus. And in the event that they have to come running in here on a moment's notice, they have a general idea where they're going. I think that I hit the high points. Let me just make sure. Maybe the other thing that's worth mentioning, because it came up in this conversation, was the university's position on concealed carry. If you're not aware, the university as a system protested the concealed carry on campus twice after it was passed. And both times got turned down by the appeals court. It was basically told that that's the law of the land. You cannot prohibit. What's ironic is that we can prohibit open carry, which maybe for people's comfort level is better, but from a police officer perspective, I would rather know who's carrying than guess if, you know, the bulge in their coat is that they just have an old cell phone or it's a gun. But that's the law of the land, and the chancellors, in spite of that, have tried to help us find ways to be creative about increasing safety. And two, you know, for the most part, people who take the time to pass the background check and take the class and get a concealed carry permit are not the type of people that we're necessarily worried about. Now, from a police officer perspective, I'm not crazy about it, because when some officer sees that on a traffic stop, anxiety levels go up a little bit, and you just have to be able to de-escalate. But in general, that's still the not in general. That's still the law of the land. This particular faculty member was disappointed we hadn't done more. But I can tell you, looking at it from a liability perspective, they did everything they could other than ignore the appeals court. So we're in compliance. And again, I've not, in my time working on university campuses, have not run into problems with concealed carry permit holders. Yeah. Yeah, I think actually, so I only know it from urban myth. Evidently, it was show and tell, and I'm not sure what kind of handgun it was, but it was mishandled. The gun went off. I think that's a former employee, but I don't know all the details. Yeah, and that is the other thing that open carry we will address. It came up recently where someone brought a gun to campus for show and tell, and we took action on it because we do have the authority to exclude people who violate those sorts of rules that we think. Now, in this particular case, they weren't brandishing it or scaring anyone, but it just has a negative impact on the sense of security and the perception of safety. So yeah, that was a bad example of how not paying attention to weapon handling can be problematic. Because that's the other piece. Now I'm going off on a tangent. I have 5 minutes. You know, the issue with possessions of handguns and concealed carry is not necessarily how someone uses it or an accident. It's that a gun can be used against the owner. When police organizations buy ballistic vests for their officers, the rule of thumb is you buy a vest that will stop what you carry. Because, and I'm not sure what the latest data says, but once upon a time, there were more officers killed with their own guns than with other guns. So to me, a gun is a tool. I don't have a bunch of them. I have a few of them, most of them for work and one for hunting. But it's been so long since I've hunted, I'm not even sure if the gun would fire again. But how people approach the use of a handgun as a tool is just really important, that you think about, how am I going to use this? And in a worst case scenario, what am I going to do to keep a hold of it if someone tries to take it from me? And further, not every use of force situation is deadly force. And if the only thing you have to defend yourself is a handgun, then someone's jumping pretty quickly from maybe some sort of a de-escalation technique, talking their way out of it, to using a handgun to settle something that maybe didn't really call for that. That's editorializing. Anything I just said is not the position of the university, and should, whatever that disclaimer should be, choose it from your favorite TV or your favorite car commercial or loan commercial or whatever. I've used more time than I said it would. Any questions for me? Is there anything else that we can be doing to collaborate with you on? At the last meeting we met with ASAL, we talked about simple things like when you guys are doing fundraisers or some sort of charity type drive, occasionally we've got ideas about other things that, in fact, right now we're about to do a clothing drive for Comitas. What we'd like to do is come along and complement, not compete. So it was ironic that we mentioned it at that meeting, and if I've got a memo on my desk, I said, okay, this is the last one we're going to do unilaterally. Next time we want to reach out and see what the different schools are doing or what the Student Senate is doing to partner, because we're all part of the same community. But anything else for me? I know there's other stuff that we could do, and if stuff comes up, give me a shout. I'm sorry, I think that my number's on the website, or if there's other programs we can do for you. Oh, the other thing that we are going to start doing are brown bag active harmer sessions. And we're just going to put them on the calendar. Now I have to figure out, actually, it's either going to be brown bag or I'm buying pizza. I have to make sure with fiscal rules that I can do that. So what I have to do is I just have to find someone from outside the organization to invite, and I have to have an agenda, and then I can buy lunch. But we figure if we do that either for lunch or in the evenings, that, look, you got to eat. And if you're like me, sometimes your laptop goes with you to lunch, dinner, breakfast, so that you can read through what you meant to read last night. But if we can do that and provide an opportunity for you guys and/or your classmates to put that push that information out, that education piece about that engineering, education, and evaluation is the one piece that I know that we can do more, and it doesn't cost a lot. So if y'all think of something that we could be complimenting or come alongside and doing, let Cody know or give me a shout. We'd like to be your partner in that. Yes, ma'am. So they want to do it this month. Probably push it out by Friday. There's about 5 or 6 locations where we'll put boxes. I can push that to you, Cody, and you can share it with you guys if you know of if you've got some stuff that you don't wear anymore or you want to donate, whatever it might be. I think that would be awesome. The other thing is, in addition to what they do at Comidas, the Resource Center is doing some things as well. And in fact, that group there, which is across from campus facilities, they're there about helping people get a new start. So sometimes that's more than just, say, a coat that you don't wear anymore. People that are getting ready to go to an interview, something that, if you're like me, you have shirts that have gone out of style, come back into style, and now they're out of style again. So it's time to get rid of it. So if you want to get rid of those things, clean out closet. The boxes, I think, like I said, 5 or 6 locations, and it includes, I'm not sure which education building, but I'll push that over to you. Okay, I used 30 minutes. I said it would take 20. Thanks for listening.
Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, push out that.
I'm gonna go up and check. I'm gonna go check the leftovers.
Yeah, there you go. All right, we're gonna break out into committee sessions. Again, this is our last meeting, so get into your committee sessions, and we'll talk a little bit about what you guys got going on for the rest of the year, and then plan a little bit for next year too. All right, guys, pick up into it.
My glasses back on around my cell phone.
All right, guys, we're coming back together here. Before we get into some committee reports, I'm going to, do I hear a motion to approve last week's minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? The motion passes. The meeting minutes are approved. We're going to kind of report out from each committee that that has an event coming up in the next couple of days or the next few weeks or coming up for next semester, anything you're excited about. So let's turn it over to Student Life first, because they have an event that looks amazing.
I mean, we always have amazing events. But Denver Zoo Life, so Senate is purchasing a very limited number of tickets. They can be purchased at the CU bookstore for students. They're good anytime December 15th through the 31st, but not for access to the zoo during the day, just for zoo lights during the night. Typically, the adult tickets are $15, but due to our contribution as well as group purchasing discount, adults are 12, children are typically, I believe, 9 or 10, and they're down to 7. Anybody under 2 is free, and I believe anybody over 65 is free because the zoo does not specify anybody over 65. But the students can go to the bookstore, purchase with check, credit card, or cash. And again, there's less than 200 tickets. So if people want to go, they have to purchase them ASAP. However, one caveat, The tickets will be available starting Friday. So not until then.
Okay.
Is there a limit on how many person can get?
Well, don't try to buy all of them and then sell them for $13. That's my only request.
I'll try.
But no, just for personally. Yeah, do we have this flyer? I will give it to Will to distribute as soon as the tickets are actually in the bookstore that way. They're not being, distributed. And people are like, what the heck?
Awesome.
Yep, during the night time. 5:30 to 9 p.m.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to diversity. It has another great event. We're going to switch back here.
So diversity has an event coming. Do you have a flyer? No?
I don't have a flyer now.
Okay, so we've already made a flyer, but we just have to send it out to you guys. It's basically we're writing letters for children that are staying at the Children's Hospital during the Christmas season. And so the event's going to be held Thursday and Friday, both days, from 12 to 2 at Botcher Commons, depending on the weather. If the weather is like rainy or too cold, we may move it inside, right where the intermission cafe is. But we'll definitely let you know in advance. And so you just have to write like a letter to one of the child, and we'll distribute it like either Friday afternoon or Monday morning to them, and they'll probably get it in time for Christmas. And it's gonna be a lot of fun because we're expecting about maybe between 80 to 100 children. So that no child basically gets left behind or without a letter. Do you guys have any questions?
What times are you going to be holding this event
12
from?
to 2.
12 to 2.
Thursday and Friday of this week in Botcher Commons.
That's amazing. That's a very special event. Thank you, diversity. Awesome. All right, moving on. Does anybody else have an announcement for an event that any other committees have an event that they just had and want to talk about, or
Yes.
legislative?
Legislative Affairs had an event today where we had representatives from Young Invincibles come to talk about health insurance and the Affordable Care Act and the exchanges here in Colorado. Got a pretty good turnout, close to around 30 people. And they want to come back next semester and talk to us some more about health advocacy training, how to get involved with all that. So, thank you, Mallory, for pulling that together in such a short amount of time. It was really, really good event.
Great job, Mallory. And then philanthropy. You guys were, go ahead.
So we just had the Ronald McDonald House. It was a huge success. Compliments to my entire team. They did an awesome job, great turnout, and they made sure we since I'm up here anyways, we have a few more events I just want to briefly touch on. Kids for Kids is going to be the second week in January, which is going to be really cool. We're going to give out like a list of supplies for each of the different schools as far as what they need to donate. We also have Project Angel Heart coming up in mid-February, and then we're also working on our mobile farm right now as well. So we're starting to get that all kind of in place right now.
Awesome. And about the Comitis Drive as well. Anybody want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we're gonna just make sure that we can get some bins in some of the academic buildings, just so that we can be bringing, like, it's for the toy drive, so to be bringing toys to the bins before Christmas break. So
Great, thank you. So again, philanthropy, great job. You guys were actually featured in the See You Today, and I want to thank the communications committee for putting that together. Thank you so much, and to the communications committee, and thank you to the philanthropy committee. Excellent job. You guys are fantastic representatives of Senate and the student body in general. So thank you. Any other committees that have announcements? Nope. All right, we'll move on then to the STAR giveaway. So we are finishing up for this semester with our STAR giveaway here. What we decided amongst the executive committee is to give away Star Wars awards, and that will actually be given out by each committee individually. So your committee chair your VP will assign the winner from the committee, and that person will receive $25 gift certificate to the bookstore, as well as, and this is most important, an awesome piece of paper that says Senate Star Wars Award winner. That's the best thing you gotta look out for. But we're gonna do that at the end of the year. So that will be given out at the end of the year next year. So just keep in mind for that. Keep racking up those stars and keep looking good for your VPs, because your VPs need your help, and you guys are awesome so far this semester. We've already approved the minutes. I don't have anything to report. It's been a week since I was up here rambling last, so I pretty much all done with my reports. Treasurer, do we have any reports, treasurers?
No new fiscal news. However, there has been a question about attendance. So just a reminder to everybody, you get 3 excused absences for the year. So we have some people who are already coming up on their 3rd excused absence. Once you go past 3, your class year loses their funding from Senate. So I know there's 2 senators, but if one of you doesn't make goes over the 3 limit, you lose it to the class, regardless of the other senators. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to be sending out an email in January, letting everybody know where they stand.
Great.
But also, if somebody's not here and you know that maybe they don't understand what's going on, please pass on the information.
So say we have a negligent representative, can we fire them from their position?
If you have a representative who has not been coming, absolutely they should be fired, and they can try to replace them as soon as possible. The reason why we do attendance is to make sure that the classes get the information that you have access. So if they're not coming, and we're assuming that that class is not getting that information, which is the entire reason we take it. Yes.
If you choose to do that, please.
If the students off campus due to rotations or clinicals or whatever.
Rotations and clinicals are okay. Studying, no, not really. That's an excused absence. If you send a proxy, remember, make sure that they write it in, but a proxy counts as you showing up essentially. It's not an excused absence. So try some proxies if you can.
How do you know that we're away on rotation? Like, do we have to let you know?
Yes. If you're not going to be here for any reason, you need to email myself or Jason. That's the only way we know that you're actually at a clinical rotation.
And a clinical rotation is not an excused absence. It's a cover obligation, and we don't have to worry about that.
It's still best.
Yes.
If you can send somebody else, though, just so that all the information is, that you would get for your year, you can still figure it out. If you can. It's not always possible.
Right. All right. Well, thank you. We'll move on to some unfinished business. One of the things we talked about last meeting just briefly was some proposals for the Chancellor's funds. I've received some more proposals, things about lighting near the library, so more lighting near the library area, as well as more sunscreen and water bottle fillers. We're also looking into the water bottle fillers for the South Campus as well. I talked to the provost about this, and we're going to get together at some point before the next year to look if there was any funds left from the original ASAC proposal. We need to get if anybody knows of a cost estimate or where to get a good water bottle filler, we can get a cost estimate to them. I think that's something that the Chancellor said was very easy to do. So we'll look into that. So why don't we talk a little bit, just kind of open the floor here for some discussion about proposals. And so what this is, in the past, what we've done is actually we've received an award from the Chancellor to kind of compensate our budget of about $6,000–7,000 every year. This year, we've been asked to write a proposal, and so to kind of specify where the money would go. And so this is something I want to open up to senators and your classes, and even we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I'd like to start getting ideas, preliminary ideas down. I also want you to reach out to your classes and things that they want on campus. So again, one of the things we've actually heard from some students has been more lighting by the library. That was one. And also sunscreen dispensers and water bottle fillers, not just on the first floor. Did I cover pretty much most of them? There was some more too. You can.
Well, I reached out to my class and they got back to me lotion dispensers by the bathrooms was another one, especially during winter. And somebody wanted a gas station on campus.
Nice. That's probably not gonna happen, but.
But yeah, a lot of my classmates left the sunscreen idea. I think you could easily propose that because it's behind the same fields in Colorado, whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Someone asked about the prayers in the library. I've never used them, so I don't know, but she said that they're really slow. So, and actually a couple of students said the same thing. They're really laggy and sometimes they freeze. So when people swipe their cards, their money is still on there, so they have to go and tell the people who are working at the library that it's frozen. So I don't know if that's something, but yeah, they were saying about it.
Okay, so the printers in the library. Will, you getting this? All right. Yeah, Blair?
This might not even cost any money, but there's a dermatology and public health professor who started a campaign that's very similar to like smoke-free campuses, but it's a tan-free campus. So pretty much the aspect of that is, I don't know if we have it here, but at other universities, you get a card that has money loaded on it from like $500 from tuition or whatever that you pay. And for a tan-free campus, you wouldn't be able to use that card at anywhere that has a tanning bed. Like, schools have affiliated places where you can spend money and things like that. No tanning beds on campus, et cetera, et cetera. And I thought that sounded pretty interesting, and considering our campus is fairly small in terms of population, it seems like a good start for the whole CU system to get interested in.
Yeah, it could be also something that we expand out to the community. So I remember those cards being something.
The whole
to get
thing is
the
already put together. It's already implemented on a couple of campuses. So.
Interesting. So why don't you email? Do you have his information? Can you email it? Yeah. Oh, perfect. Can you email Will and myself, and we can talk to him about possibly even the sunscreen dispenser idea too. I'd like to say a lot of the lab or a lot of the campus, just offhand, that a lot of the campus is tan-free anyways, because we spend a lot of time in study halls and lab space and all sorts of fun things. We don't go outside much. Yeah.
I know a few times I've needed to print something last minute and closest place to the library.
Right.
Is there a place to print in the education building? I don't know if anyone else has that issue of needing to print stuff and
Printing of it.
it's a different system. It's not like the system.
Yeah, I agree.
It might be interesting to have like maybe this could be a communications event or a student life event to show where the printers are, and maybe have like a video or something to kind of like, hey, I need to print something really quick. I'm here. Where do I go before my class in 10 minutes? Something like that would be kind of fun, I think. So maybe that could be another just an idea of like getting knowledge to students, putting something on our YouTube page. Any other proposals? And again, I know you're on the spot here, so please feel free to go ask your constituents what they want on this campus. So I want to applaud Jill for asking some of her constituents what they wanted, and we heard back from them, and I think they had some fantastic ideas. So your fellow students will have a lot of good ideas. You should just be like in passing, ask them what's going on, what they want. So. And we can kind of come back to this topic in a little bit. So we'll table this discussion for the next meeting, and then we'll get kind of a bracket going of things we want to propose. We'll start drafting the initial document, and eventually we'll just fill in the caveats of what we want and the pricing. Yep.
The proposal will include all the things that we're interested in implementing, or just one?
It might, depending on the cost of certain things, it could include more than one, okay. But again, we might have to just limit it to one or two things, yeah. So we want to get this proposal out before February, so that we receive the funds sometime in February to start implementing these things.
If we find that there aren't printers available various places besides the library.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we'll move. Any other unfinished business from last meeting or anything you guys want to talk about? Move on to. Oh.
Well, thing I noticed that I guess there are some schools that graduate in December, so this is actually some of our Senate meeting members' last meeting.
Yeah.
maybe saying, you know, congratulations to some of you guys, whoever you are out there. Pleasure working.
Why don't
with
we
you.
have them stand up, actually? Some of them are here. We have two, is there two? Thank you, guys. These are the ISP students. Thank you so much for your service and dedication to Senate. We really appreciate it. We have cords coming for you. We'll get them to you. And if you don't hear from us for a pickup location, I'll be there at graduation. I will personally give them to you, okay? So you will have your cords. All right, thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. Moving on to new business. Our first January meeting is scheduled for January 8th. That's Monday, January 8th. I know there was some talk last meeting about possibly rescheduling that, pushing it off a week or two. Who's in school on January 8th? So dental, AA, graduate school is always in school, medical. Who's not in school? Nursing and public health, PA, pharmacy. So there's like half and half. And are you guys, most of you guys in school on the 15th? You guys all start the 22nd. Okay. Do you guys start on are you all on the same program? 22nd. Okay. So it's either people start on the 8th or they start on the 22nd. Is that kind of what we're hearing here? So let me just reiterate though, if you are not in school, you are not required to be at Senate. Your obligation to be at Senate is waived. However, do you guys think it would be useful to have a meeting on the 8th with about half the population? We can talk about that. Exactly.
I think if you guys want to get this proposal in, it would be useful just to kind of get it narrowed down and get started on things like that.
All right. Do I hear any discussion about this? So feel free to say I can show up or I can't make it or going to be in somewhere exotic and warm and.
Are there any events that the committees are planning that might need like meet up earlier in January? I don't know.
She has an event the second week of January.
I'm all for it. I think the more we can meet and the more we can stay on schedule, again, I might be poisoning the well here by giving my own opinion here, but I think we should keep it the way it is. And then people that just aren't able to make it, we will kind of, if you are, we'll fill you in at the next meeting, which will be the 22nd. So we're just having a meeting before that on the 8th. Do I hear any more discussion about this? Okay. Any other new business? No? Anybody got any fun plans for the holidays? All right. Well, we're going to turn it over to our OCSS. Any announcements?
First, you guys have done a great job this semester. So thank you everyone, all the committees. And we do have an in-person Patrick, if you haven't gotten to meet him yet, on board. He'll be helping out with the PDSAs and some of our other finances. Nothing will change for you guys, just send me your stuff, but just so you know you have a full-time person again. Where is he from? And he's full office all the time. And he'll be yeah, but so just keep it like it has been, just send it to me. And I'll take care of it for you. But there won't be any issues. I have to do all of them.
All right, perfect. One thing we also might send out in the next couple of weeks is a evaluation of leadership of Senate. So we probably keep on the lookout for your evaluation for your VPs as well as for myself. How you think meetings are going, how you think we can improve, things like that. We want your feedback. We want to improve as leaders. We want to get a better understanding of student voices. We want you to have a good grasp of the resources that Senate has available. So how familiar you are with the drives and how familiar you are making posters and talking with your committee and things like that. So keep a lookout for that. If there's no other business to come before us, yes, of course.
Thank you for bringing up the printers in the library. So over break, Cody and I will meet at the library, and they may not even know this is an issue, but I'm gonna try to get those fixed.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll send that one.
Do I hear a motion on the table to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. We are adjourned for the semester. Thank you, everybody.